the name of our show.
Hi everybody, how you doing?
Hi there.
I'm Todd.
And I'm Terri.
And we are coming at you with a large glass.
Yeah.
We're pre-gaming for the debates tonight.
Yeah.
And
yeah, pretty much.
So let's start out with a few things. So thank you for watching, first of all. And for those of you that are new to Twitch, keep in mind that there's a couple of things you should know. Number one, can you follow us, please? Because that's really helpful.
Yeah.
When you follow us, we actually get closer to, hey, Ben, how's it going? We see you out there. Good to see. Thank you so much. You're always here. I love that. So when you follow us on Twitch, and I'm going to keep saying this every time we get new viewers in here, I'm going to keep repeating this. Please leave a follow. Yes. And also be active in the chat, because being part of the chat helps, the discussion move along. It kind of like, there it is, Ben's like, hello. When you're active in the chat, it helps to move the conversation along, and we love that. So thanks for that. All right, so tonight we changed gears.
We did change gears a little bit. So we were gonna make this mostly about drinking wine, but then we realized there's lots of other beverages out there. And based on the artists that we're going to be talking about today, hi, Mom, we haven't said yet, so just hang out.
It's coming. Have some patience.
So the thing is, we're trying to correlate the beverages with the artists. So when we were looking at this artist, I'm going to say she, so that's a little bit of a teaser. She's from the States, and she's from New England.
Correct.
But she was also born in New York. So we kind of have two different beverages, and it's beer, because we thought that was more fitting for the occasion.
Not only did we think it was more fitting, but as soon as we realized we were located on the East Coast, I'm sorry, but wine from the East Coast is horrifying. I've never found a good one that I like before, and if it is good, it's because they're bringing it in from somewhere else, and they're blending it with the stuff they're making here and putting their label on it.
Yeah, well, I don't know, because sometimes when you go to a winery, you're caught up in the atmosphere a little bit, and then you're looking around, you're enjoying the scene, and then you have 2 drinks and 3 drinks, and sometimes it's okay. Or maybe not.
It's just me. It's just me. I can't drink wine from the East Coast.
Okay,
so we went with beer, knowing we've got an artist that is born in New York and lives in Connecticut currently. So I went with a New England IPA, and my New England IPA is Stone Fear Movie Lions. Now, why they printed this label upside down, I don't know. Maybe I got a 6-pack that was misprinted, but I went through all of them, and they all look like this. So I'm having a New England IPA. I'm going to let you know how that is. What are you having?
Well, the artist was born in New York City, so I went with a New York beer. And it's also Halloweenish kind of time, so I went with a pumpkin ale, and this is from Post Road. It's the Brooklyn Brewery. They're right in Williamsburg, so that was my choice because I thought that was more fitting for the season. And I already have been sipping a little bit, so.
I just realized I probably needed to turn down the bar music a little bit. I can reach over the bar and actually turn the music down here. So good. I know I like the idea of the pumpkin ale. Yeah. A couple of little bits of business from last week that I just wanted to throw out there. So number one, Amanda Toolin, I wanted to thank you for your donation from last week. That was really nice of you, and thanks so much. I'd like to thank the people that followed us last week, which has been very helpful, so I appreciate that. And I think we should toast.
Yeah, let's toast.
All right, so cheers.
Our second episode.
Here's to our second episode and our second artist.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to hold off on that a little bit for Chris Lambrix out there. No relation to Todd Lambrix, of course, but that name is very common. But we want to hold off on that and do a few little bits of business beforehand, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So what do we want to start with?
I don't know. Did you have a good week?
No.
No.
I had the shittiest week of my life.
Yeah. Well, it's 2020 for you. 2020 has been a rough year all around. So yeah. But
should we tell the story?
You could tell the story if you want to.
I have no pictures to back this up with or supplement this with, and I wish I did, so you're just going to have to believe me. But years ago, we built a treehouse on the property, and it's not some, plywood and pallet wood piece of junk. It was a 144 square foot interior with a sleeping loft, Wi-Fi, electricity, a giant 8 foot by 12 foot deck on the outside. It was completely waterproof. It slept 5. It had a TV in it. It was like magic.
Aside from that, it was truly a work of art. And the fascination it brought to the community was actually one of the best parts, because people would be walking by and they would stop and look at the tree house. And I think it's a bit of a dream house because everybody kind of goes back to their childhood with it. So it was like this little hopeful beacon in a really rough time.
Hi, Christina. Thanks for coming back. So the treehouse was this type of place where every time I was out there working on it, not a single car would go by that would not stop, roll down the window and be like, oh my God. I mean, it had all antique glass windows in it. I mean, it was like a beautiful thing. Toothless Wither, thanks for coming. I'm glad you made it. It's good to see you. So this was the type of thing that was just like gorgeous. And the kids loved it. They'd go out there at night. They wanted to spend the night. All right, let's get on with this. Let's get to the point. Recently, well, let's go back a little bit. There is a fishing club on the river behind our house, and it's a very, very long and involved story about their possession of the land. And it turns out, oh, yeah, Christina, I'm building up to this one. I'm going slow because this one's painful. Okay. Oh, no, what happened to the gorgeous treehouse? Thank you. A little bit of proof that it was a beautiful thing.
It existed.
That it existed, past tense. Anyway, somebody across the river decided to put their house on the market for sale. And the real estate agent that listed that house, willy-nilly ran around, took some photos. And yeah, I am talking about the one you saw pics of, Ben, that very one. That real estate agent willy-nilly put pics of the land on the listing. And one of those pics was a part of the fishing club's property. And the fishing club was like, oh, that belongs to us. We should probably have all the land surveyed. Well, a part of their land adjoins my property in a very sort of little kind of ambiguous way.
It's very vague. Actually, some of the features kind of mesh onto your property. So it's really hard to just...
Our property.
To look at the line, yes.
Right. So what happened? It turns out that the treehouse was built just over the line. Just over the line. And when I explained to the fishing club how I made that mistake, they seemed to get it. But I preemptively and very quickly wrote a letter to the actual landowner, because the fishing club does not own that land. They just are renters, 100-year renters, but they're renters. And the man who owns the land promptly said, because I offered to buy the small portion, I said, can I purchase this? Because it's the size of a postage stamp. I mean, a big postage stamp, but
Yeah,
it's not.
It's substantial.
It's not. It's buyable, and it's also unbuildable. So it's not like a piece of land that somebody would want to develop on. It's wooded, it's wetland. It's not a place you'd build. So the owner said no, and then immediately told his tenants, the fishing club, that I made that offer, which irritated them a little bit. And so they sent their neighbor relations person over to talk about what we could do. Long story short, I felt like the writing was on the wall and I was going to get horrifically screwed. They demanded that I add them to my insurance, which I couldn't really do. They said that they would entertain the possibility of an easement, which we knew they weren't going to do because they denied other people easements for things, in the past. And ultimately, I woke up on Monday morning and said, I called my attorney and then I said, I got to take this thing down. Otherwise, they're going to come and take it down and then I'm going to get billed for that. So I rallied the troops. My father, thanks, Dad. Dave Schmidt, my neighbor.
Yeah. Well, it was really heartbreaking that this piece of art that you worked for 3 years building had to be taken down. Like, it was just devastating. But I will say one of the most beautiful things about it was all the people that showed up to help him take it down. And the treehouse was down in about 24 hours. And I mean, it just goes to show that there's people out there helping out, to bring it down. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we got it down in 48 hours and it was gone. And it was like a whirlwind and exhausting but it's gone now. And so Pid Pop says, yeah. I've been saying for days. I've been trying to figure out exactly like what to do here. And it's one of those things when you grind in your head over and over again about an issue that you don't know how it's going to get resolved. You just want to you want to cut it off. You want to get rid of it. And so we got rid of it. And it's maybe what we'll do is we'll post some pics of that on our Instagram page. I'll post some pics on the Instagram page so you can see it. And we'll kind of say, Ben's like, now I'm mad. Yeah, you and everyone else who's been, sort of connected to this. And it's tough. Toothless Wither says, welcome to the stream. And I think that's aimed at Pid Pop. So yes, welcome to the stream. Thanks for chatting. So we got some other business here. First of all, we have been experiencing occasional disruptions in our mic flow. So if that happens, I think I've got a way to solve that, but stick with us.
Actually, we're pretty hopeful that that it was fixed too, because you did some troubleshooting prior to.
So we'll see.
I think we're okay.
Streamlabs has been funny with me.
If you do see any glitches, just let us know in the chat and we can correct them.
Yeah.
We'll keep our eyes on that.
Yeah. All right. So one of the things, our biggest mission here is to talk about art, and to talk about getting over your fear of talking about art. And we present a new artist every week. Right. And so I have been sort of reading a little bit from Jerry Saltz's book here and there, especially to my students during the day when I have my classes. And I have one for you. And this one really nicely relates to tonight's artist. So I'm going to throw that out there right now. So just give me a second and I'm going to give you this little bit of advice. So again, I've been reading from Jerry Saltz's book, How to Be an Artist. And last week I just sort of knee-jerkingly said, and all right, Pid Pop gave a follow. Thank you very much. That's awesome. I very knee-jerkingly said, I'm not suggesting you go out and buy this book, but go buy this book.
You should go buy the book. It's actually an awesome book. It's a very inspiring read for anybody who wants to understand or maybe thought about wanting to go to a gallery and know what's going on in the world. There's something in there for everybody, from the most experienced person to someone who doesn't really know that much and they want to learn. So he's awesome. He's got a great Instagram feed. He's fantastic. I learn so much from him every single day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I love about this book is each chapter is a single page, which comes with an image, right? And so if you just pick it up and read one page a night, it's going to give you something. So this week's chapter is chapter 14, and it says, make your mark, right? He says, if you're worried about drawing, start by making simple marks. Tell yourself you're just playing, experimenting, outlining, seeing what looks like what. If you can write, you already know how to draw. And this is the part about tonight's artist. If you can write, you already know how to draw. You already have a form of your own, a style of marking letters and numbers and your own special doodles. Don't you love how you write the first letter of your name? These are forms of drawing too. And I've said this to my students for years, that writing is drawing, but we're writing small pictures that symbolize something that we put together into meaning, right? And well, I'll wait until we talk about the artist for that part. But anyway, it says, while you're making these marks, pay attention to the physical feedback you're getting from your hand, wrist, and arm, but also from your eyes, your ears, even your sense of smell and touch. How long do your marks extend before you need to lift the pencil and make a different mark? Do you lift the pencil or just cut back, never leaving the surface? Why? What does each action do? Which is better for you? Make those marks shorter or longer. Change the ways you make them. Wrap your fingers in fabric to change your touch. Try your other hand to see what it does. Put plugs in your ears. See what silence does. All these things are telling you something. Get very quiet inside yourself and listen to them. I love that.
Yep, and I see Ben was asking what it was called again. And Christina, thank you for answering that question. It's called How to Be an Artist by Jerry Saltz.
Which my camera's not going to focus on because it likes faces, so hang on a minute.
It does like faces.
Here it comes. Nope, it wants Terry's. There it is, How to Be an Artist. But as soon as you got your face uncovered, it's like, ooh, a face.
Yep.
All right, love that book. And what I think that chapter is really telling us is, last week we were talking about getting over your fear of talking about art, which is a big thing. Yep. But then what about making it?
Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure there.
There is a lot of pressure there. I think we're always worried about if fear of failure. But he's trying to coax us to get a little bit beyond that because we don't know until we try sometimes. Yeah.
But failure is one of the most beneficial things we have, right? And I teach from the standpoint of failure. Failure teaches you you learn something from that, right? And you move on learning from that failure. And a lot of the time the failure causes you to discover something new. So we love failure.
Yep.
So just make marks. I mean, just doodle. I mean, when you used to be, all right, so not all of us will remember this. I don't know how old everybody is out there, but when you're tied onto a phone that's got a cord on it and you used to talk after school, I'd sit there and I'd just be like making circles.
Yeah, me too.
Or just doodling people.
Yeah, or even in class, I hate to say it, when you're supposed to be paying attention.
That's what you do.
But yeah, there's a process behind it, so.
There's a guy that I work with who is a very famous illustrator, and he's a fabulous he's watching him draw is a fascinating act. And whenever we're in meetings, he is never without his sketchbook, and he is always looking down into it and drawing. And some people have a hard time with that because they think that he's not paying attention. But I know absolutely that is a way to actually pay closer attention because it focuses your mind, right?
It does.
And listening to things and internalizing them and then outputting them on that page, even if they're not directly connected, it's like another mode of thinking.
That is true. Yeah.
So drawing. Try some drawing. Saturday morning drawing for me. And I have so many pieces of paper that is just doodles from me being bored in class. You might actually not be just bored. You might actually be processing that information visually, which is...
Or working something out in your mind and you just don't even realize those marks are part of the process. So,
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It's a way of, some people say they have to write things down as they're listening so that they retain them. Some people visually draw, even disconnected drawing. Like the professor in the class is talking about the history of the Civil War, and I'm drawing a picture of a tomato. Well, I may still be retaining that somehow.
Yeah.
So, Pid Pop says I do a lot of digital art. Yeah, actually, you want to know what? I love that. And I don't know if you have this or not, but I was always really reluctant to do digital art until I tried a Cintiq monitor by Wacom and a digital tablet. And the feel of that pen on that surface was just fantastic.
Wow.
Like it really worked well.
Sometimes that is enough of a motivator, just feeling it like that.
And Christina says, you guys are speaking my language. You know that, right? Scribbles, marks, smudges, repeat. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And we see that in your work. I mean, your work is like brilliant that way.
It really is.
And I've noticed, Christina, when I scroll back through your Instagram really far, and then I come forward, I can kind of see some of the things that you've sort of locked into as discovery, and you start to incorporate that into the new work, and that's exciting. It's like new words.
Yeah.
Toothless Wither says I also do a lot of digital art. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think that's a really good place to work if that's your, it's portable, it's exciting, it's illuminated.
It is.
So I am talking a lot.
No, you're not, but I am so excited to talk about this artist today. Todd, I think I'm in love.
Amanda Toulon is back. I think it creates a stronger memory too. I can look at drawings and remember the music playing or film playing in the background. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And Amanda, I don't know if you were here, but I thanked you for that donation last week. So thank you again. That was really nice of you.
Yeah, you bought us drinks this week.
Yes,
that's awesome.
You bought this week's beer.
Thank you so much.
So, oh, and Ron's here too. I miss making art. I'm such a lazy artist. You and my wife inspire me, but I always make excuses. Ron, that's okay. And cheers to you, Amanda. Ron, I always say this, and this was something a mentor of mine said. Please excuse my minion Band-Aid on my finger. A mentor of mine said this, and it was really important because I was stressed over the fact that I had no time to go into the studio and spend 6 hours there, 8 hours there. And what he said to me, he's like, hey, can you find 10 minutes a day? Because that's a studio practice, right? 10 minutes. And your work, Ron, is like amazing. Like you could get in there and in 10 minutes, you could probably just start to work out a problem in your head and just There it is. And that 10 minutes, make that your undeniable 10 minutes every day, right? And that's like your slot. And if it's at 5:30 in the morning, awesome. If it's at 11 o'clock at night after everyone's in bed,
Yep.
fine.
Yeah.
But, it doesn't have to be that big stint. I know you want to do the artist.
I do.
And
I'm
keep
really excited about the artist.
Well, why don't you tell us about the artist tonight?
Okay, so I'll tell you a little bit about the artist. She was born in New York City. She's a 1980 graduate of RISD with her undergrad.
Sorry.
She right now is living in Connecticut, and she just finished a show this past summer.
Yep.
And her name is Karla Knight, and she is fantastic. I saw her up on Instagram. Was actually the first place I saw her, and that's because Jerry Saltz actually recognized her, and ever since then, I am just in love with her drawings.
I have to say that this stuff, now we're kind of delving into the world of abstraction. I mean, last week we looked at Isaac Cordell, and we were talking a lot about street art. But there's a lot of realism in his work. And one of the things that makes his work fascinating is it's really easy not easy, but we identify with it, right? Because they're little humans and we see that. When we get into the world of abstraction,
it's a little bit harder sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think one of the things that really attracted to me was her use of color. And we were talking about language and doodling and such like that. And hers is very, it's rich. It's got lots of layers, both truly, literally has layers in it. Plus with her use of shapes and forms and this artificial language going on in there that she created.
Whoa. Hold on a minute. Taco Maniac 444. Hi. You guys are on the first ever Twitch kiss cam. If the kiss is good or you do something funny, I will follow.
I was
Do we have to wait? Do we have to
that.
Do we have to kiss? All right, real quick, ready? Well, the kiss has to be good. How about we work it into the routine?
Yeah, let's keep you.
She doesn't want to kiss me on camera.
I totally want to kiss him on camera, but let's just kind of.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't want to throw our viewers. You know what, Taco Maniac, hang out for a minute. We're gonna make this happen. This is gonna happen.
It's gonna happen.
All right, because we want the followers. And wait. So, do we have to be? Ron's laughing. All right. Anyway, let's quickly get back to Karla Knight for a second.
Okay.
So we just want to keep going on this intro. What were you saying?
Well, I was just saying how much I enjoyed her drawings, and people are waiting for this kiss cam.
All right, come on, give it to me. Mwah. There.
Right, okay.
Come on, give me the follow.
There we go. All right.
Things will do. God, this could go down a really bad rabbit hole.
This could.
Yeah, Taco Maniac's now following. Woo!
Good. But she's really, really something. And there's a lot of things I have to start with her and so much I want to say about her. I think I like that it took her a little while to find this route. Like when you go back, her website is karlaknight.org. And you can see that
You can always tell when we read the chat,
yeah.
Ron.
Vera has given
Very nice.
very nice.
Okay. Can I throw something in
go
here?
ahead.
Okay. So Karla Knight's work, when we start delving into abstraction, we tend to get a little bit intimidated, or we tend to get a little bit lost because we're like, what am I looking at? If I can't find something recognizable in it, how do I proceed? And that's actually not a hard thing to do. Okay. Just you don't worry so much about how to define and understand every single thing you're trying to read. And this is a really great example, what we're looking at here, of that very thing. So first of all, Karla Knight's got this great video where she talks about her work. And we're actually going to put a link to that when we post this on YouTube, we're going to put a lot of links in the comments with information about Karla. We're going to put her Instagram feed in there. We're going to put her website in there, a few other links so you can go look. And one of the things she says in that video is she talks very, very simply and directly about what inspires her in the work and what it is doing. And it's very simple. Number one, her father was into UFOs.
He was actually an author, and he wrote a couple of books, and she had grown up with this background. So he was the main inspiration as to why she started going down this road. But interestingly enough, that I feel like this spans the lifespan because she also has that language in there with where she's making up her own language, and when she talks about learning it, she learned kind of was influenced by her son when he was learning how to write and do everything. So you see like this influence all the way from when she was a little girl with her dad all the way to when she's teaching her son how to write.
Yeah. Yeah, and that kind of starts to come out in a number of different ways. So Mike Rader says, love her work. The time signature is slippery. I like that. It could be the late 1940s or 40 years into the future.
Yeah.
And it's funny you mentioned that, Mike, because I was thinking that this kind of really, the color palette in this reminds me of mid-century modern, atomic kind of design work, that sort of starburst kind of thing. Those color palettes in those simple patterns that we used to see in that design are totally present here. Maybe not the forms, maybe a little bit, but that's here. So one thing she does is she was fascinated with the way her children would write letters and how they would get flipped around and how they would make up their own letters. And so there are tons of little glyphs, like alien glyphs in this work. They're little symbols that look like her own alphabet. Did you say that already?
Well, she actually said that she started dreaming of this alphabet when she was starting to create it. Like she said that she'd go to sleep and she could see these letters pop up, and over time to her they actually mean something. But yeah, and actually if you go back into her portfolio on her website, you can kind of see when that started, because there's some when her son was drawing doodles, she started overlapping them because she does use some collage elements in her artwork. She started overlapping them with her own artwork as well. So it was an interesting shift. If you go back, I mean, and it's interesting to me to see how long it took for her to find this particular pattern, because when you go back 20 years, her artwork was very different, but you could see it heading in that direction.
So Memory Vessel, last week when I found out who people were, I don't know if they want their names mentioned on this or not, but Memory Vessel, and if you're cool with me saying what your name is, because I know who you are, and thanks for coming, by the way, it's awesome to see you, says, what's the scale of her work? And
it could be from small drawings to enormous paintings.
like really large paintings, like over 140 inches or 130. I mean, these are...
Yeah, quite large. And I imagine, I haven't seen one in person yet, and actually that's an interesting topic too to go into in just a few moments. But I think it would really be overwhelming with all that language and all those drawings and everything.
Right. And again, I also saw a couple of installed walls of her paintings that looked like they were somewhere in the vicinity of 24 by 24, 30 by 30, somewhere in there. But the interesting thing to me about these is when we start getting into this unknown language, this glyph type of writing, and we mentioned earlier that that writing is a form of drawing. There's this weird line that exists for me. And when I start to look at stuff like this, and I actually have done a lot of asemic writing in my work. Asemic writing is this very thing. It's sort of like handwriting that is nonsensical. If you try to read it, you can't. And so when this line appears between drawing and writing, where we don't understand the writing, but we know that it's writing, there's like this weird space that our mind kicks into. I have to read this. I have to there's something telling me to read this. It's no longer about just being pictures.
Do you think it's the linear nature of it, or do you think it's like the symbolism, or that we're trying to process it as belonging to something, like some kind of pattern or something, if we can't recognize it as a form? Or
Well, I think it has to do a little bit with line, and I think it has to do a little bit with scale, and I think it has to do a little bit with the way the forms sort of line up, repeat themselves to a degree. In other words, there's a similarity in the forms that the line takes that say, this is like letters, but and so therefore I must have to read it somehow.
Yeah, and there is an element of repetition too. So just like as you're reading a sentence, you would see some repetition.
So these are, Ben says, has she ever designed a game board? Which is interesting because
that actually, some of her inspiration, because people try to, as we make sense of it, they're like, gee, that looks like a map. So maps, charts, flow sheets, motherboards, those kinds of spaceships. She's got this sci-fi element, based on her background with her dad and
There's a
everything. So
there's
yeah,
a crop circle thing going on in it.
mm-hmm.
There's like this weird there's like this organization of geometry,
There
right?
is.
And then when you include this reference to alien beings, I mean, you can't help but think of crop circle
Yeah.
also.
And Ben says that he loves the color choices, the reds and oranges and blues. Yeah, I think the colors are one of the most appealing things about her work. Like I was trying to figure that out too. Like, why is that really sucking me in? And that use of red that she does, but that's like the main. I mean, she's got yellow in this one too, but all the other primary colors are really soft. She's got like a neon glow to it, which enhances that whole out of this world feeling to some of these art pieces.
I think this goes back to what Mike Rader said about how the time signature is slippery and how this could be from the 1940s or 40 years into the future. And there's something that's not contemporary about it, right? It's sort of in this weird kind of place. And those colors do kind of harken back to that kind of the color palette you associate with, mid-century, or a color palette that maybe we just aren't familiar with, and maybe that means it could be futuristic somehow. So she also works a lot on these like ledger papers, and she kind of incorporates the graph, incorporates the old page numbers, incorporates the old titles on the pages.
Yeah, she said some of the paper goes way back.
Yeah.
That she's collaging in there and drawing on just because she liked that element and that old, the vintage feel to it, which also it's like a repeating theme, just like as she was influenced by her dad and now her son. There's these old papers, these new papers. She's incorporating old and new into these pieces.
Yeah. One thing that stands out for me, and Mike Rader will probably, I hope, I don't know, maybe appreciate this, or maybe, but I'll just stop talking and talk, is if you know what the Tengwar, all right, put it in the chat. Who knows what the Tengwar is? Don't go and Google it. Don't go and Google the Tengwar. But it reminds me a little bit of the Tengwar, which is like, I don't want to say, because I want to see if somebody puts it in the chat. Ben probably knows what the Tengwar is. But without waiting for too long for somebody to write it in the chat, I guess I'll just get into it and say it. It's spelled Tengwar. And Tengwar was a language that was developed by J.R.R. Tolkien. Tolkien, of course, was the author of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. He was also an English language professor at Oxford. And he spent a lot of time studying different translations of Greek myths and different stories from like King Arthur and those sorts of periods. And while he was at it, he wrote The Hobbit and the first two chapters of The Lord of the Rings, and subsequently created his own language. And his language was much more the development of each letter in the alphabet and the order that those letters took in terms of their top to bottom. We go A, B, C, D, E, F, G. His language had a much more systematic, coherent organization to it, right? And that language was the language of elves, and then that elven language sort of broke off into a number of different things. But when you look at that, like if you go look up the elven language of this Tengwar, Ben didn't want to say. He's like, yeah, I didn't want to say. You should say. That's what the chat's for. Then you take some of the pressure off of me. Anyway, that elven language is, first of all, beautiful, right? And this is not brought out in the movies. You'd have to actually you actually have to read the books to get this. But if you've seen the movies and you understand a little bit about it, the one ring, when they throw it in the fire and it comes out and it's got all this beautiful writing on it, that's the Tengwar, right? But it doesn't say anything. But actually it does, because Tolkien wrote a key to decipher it. You're like, please stop talking about this nerdy stuff. The show at the Morgan was great. So you saw that? As if you're going to like yell out into the room. Yes, and she actually has another show coming up, which we're excited about, which is at the Aldrich Museum of Contemporary Art in Connecticut.
Yep.
So that would definitely be one to go see.
Yep.
So yes, yes.
Now it's funny because last week we were talking about the accessibility of street art and graffiti art, and that you could just be walking along and Okay, Ron. That you could just be walking along and, come across these works of art. And I will say Karla Knight is not as accessible because she's in a totally different genre with her abstract art. And she was in a gallery earlier this year that was shut down because of COVID.
Right.
So that also changed the experience of seeing the artwork, and that's one of the issues that artists are facing. But fortunately, she does have, a lot of social media. She's got Twitter, she's got Instagram, and all of those things too.
Right. Right. So a couple of things. Number one, if you haven't followed us yet and you like the channel, please do that. We would love that. And plus, when you follow, that cute little zombie comes up on the screen like it's running, and it announces that you're following. Who wouldn't want that? The second thing is the let's check in with the Fear Movie Lions double IPA. Oh my God, this is like 8.5%, which is good lubrication. Oh, Mike Rader just followed. Thank you, Mike. This is good lubrication for the upcoming debate.
Mine's only 5%. Oh yeah, the debate's on tonight.
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
So you guys are pre-gaming with us. That's all I'm gonna say. You're just pre-gaming. You're having a good time. Some mellow time before it gets a little.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All
So
right.
enough of that. So thanks, Mike, for the follow. What else do we want to talk about here? Because I still love these paintings, and I don't feel like I've been talking about a lot of side references, but not about the paintings themselves. So
Gosh,
Ron
where do
says
we
you
start?
might need a 12-pack.
Oh,
Yeah,
dear.
I got it. Don't worry, I bought it. It's ready. Don't call me in the morning. By the way, we were looking at actually having swag. Okay, so I want to take a poll here. All right, I'm going to take a chat poll real quick. We might actually have swag produced for our show. Not tomorrow, not in a week. We got to see if this thing holds up.
Eventually.
But if we were to do swag, what would you want to see? Like a T-shirt, a mug? A mug would be good, right? Because after an hour of drinking heavily while we talk about art, you might need that coffee in the morning, right? I don't know. So if we did swag, number one, is that stupid? Is that nerdy? Or should we do that? Does it seem like it's like outrageous? The work is so on the grid.
It really is.
Yes.
You know what though? If you go, and I keep going back to her website because that's really the best place to view her work right now if you want immediate accessibility to it. She wasn't always like this. Like, I think I wrote down like back in the 80s and 90s when she first started, she was doing these oil panels, like oil on wood paintings, and they had that surreal feel to it with the space was definitely a theme. She still had these circular orbs going up, like here, and like the one that we're seeing on the screen, it looks like a levitation effect with the spaceship, but she still had that kind of stuff in these oil paintings. So it's really, you got to go back and look at her website and just see the transition, because to me that's one of the most fascinating parts about her, and it's really inspiring because sometimes as artists we don't find our way right away either. Like there's always, this progression where we can get somewhere, and it's all about the journey.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and so a couple things. Amanda says it feels like she has a lot of rules that she creates in the work, trying to figure out what the 4 numbered corners relate to. Yes. And there's also repeating themes, right? And so I think that relates to this. Maybe she goes to this place that she's sort of pulling from, right? And she even mentions this in her video, that there are words and certain symbolic relationships that come up over and over again. And then somebody else said something. Christina says, I do find her work completely fascinating. Reminds me and gives me a feel of schematic drawings, some architectural renderings of a machine. Yeah. And I think that weirdly, I think that has to do with her choices of surface on some level. Somehow that ledger paper, the graph, the fact that it is organized on a grid, the fact that there are rule sets put into play, like Amanda said,
Yeah.
I feel like all those things relate to architectural renderings on some level, right? There are rules.
yeah, I kind of want to see it up close, which is the unfortunate thing. We're not looking at this, but I want to see what the texture looks like too, because she's got these collage elements going on, and I just want to see what's collage and what's not, because sometimes when she puts these circles on those those flat backgrounds, you can see some of the texture pick up in the photography, so you can tell that it's painted. But I want to get a little closer.
Right. And I think there's also something interesting about the relationship between drawing and painting in these. And so there's, even in the ones like this one you see on the screen right now, this one is all painted, right? We don't have that extra drawn element thrown in there, but there's a drawn element to the way it's painted, right? And so the linearity of the drawing, as well as that sort of systematic kind of placement of geometry in the painting, there's a relationship there in the way the rule sets for writing sort of work in both of those worlds, which is kind of an interesting thing. And I think that also relates back to that, the rules of schematics, the rules of diagrammatic sort of things.
Yeah.
Just okay, so he hasn't said anything in the chat, but somebody who's not in the chat, and I'm not going to say that, just private messaged me that said you had to mention Tolkien's Elvish language. Yeah, I did, okay? I'm sorry. And he probably signed off because of it, but that's what you get. I think that person's watching on their phone, and they're probably not able to participate in the chat.
Yeah.
So Pidpop says it looks plastic or machine-made. Yeah, you know, the hand... In the paintings themselves, the hand is kind of not as evident as it is in some of the drawn ones, but yeah, it does have that kind of feel. It's almost like you said earlier, something about a chipboard or a motherboard.
A motherboard.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, and I like how, because your eye definitely moves all over the piece, and it's not symmetrical or anything like that, but it's very balanced. The way that there's not a boring part of any one of these drawings. You're constantly shifting around, and it's interesting to see where her mark making leads you, because I almost feel like I'm going through a maze sometimes looking at some of this.
Dave Schmidt says the fishing club sucks. He's finally chiming in about my whole story about the tree house. So going back to that, yes, thank you for that. And I just wanted to go back to what you said a second ago, because you were talking about, what were you talking about?
I was talking about how your eye moves around.
Yeah, but go back before that just a minute. Do you remember?
I'm getting older.
8.5%. 8.5%.
It's balanced. Like the composition is balanced.
Right.
It's not symmetrical, but it's
no, it was
fairly
something else. It was
composed.
something else. Not about composition, but there was just something really. Something stood out to me. All right, it'll come back. It'll come back.
It'll probably wake you up at night. It'll be like.
Yeah.
Maybe.
All right. So wait a minute. I want to go back and look at what Ron says. It looks almost like alien schematics. Ben says another amazing thing is all freehand. Yeah. I mean, there's a real level of sort of exactitude here, but at the same time, it remains playful. So that exactitude does not give it this kind of, even though Pidpop said something about plasticity, which is, you know, it's a kind of, that sort of feels to me like it's got some rigidity to it, plasticity. But even though this has this kind of exactitude to it, there's a playfulness to it. I love this one. I love that 1, 2, 3, where you've got a dot inside the egg, and then it splits into a whole bunch, and then 2 come out. I mean, there's this really interesting kind of fun language that exists in these, that as you look at them longer and longer, it begins to reveal itself.
Now, they were saying that some of these, because she understands the language. She's been doing this for a long time. But even over here, I want to point it out on the one that we're looking at right now. If you go down a couple, it says U-M. She was actually talking about that.
Yeah.
Because that could mean a couple different things. Like one of the things that she was saying was that it sounds like a meditation, like in yoga and in Buddhism, you kind of hear that chant. And she had said that to her, that makes sense. And there's something, to me, it's a little bit spiritual too, because some of these forms look like, I don't know if you, when you were a little kid, if you ever made that one craft project of a God's eye, where you go around with the circles.
With the yarn on the sticks.
Yeah, and sometimes some of these pull me in like little God's eyes all over the place. Then you see this Om, and then there's this ethereal spaceship thing going on.
There's like little elements of focus in here, right? And then once you kind of focus in on one of those areas, you begin, I mean, and on some level, it's this weird kind of Renaissance painting reference, right? Where you go in, and then something leads you through to the next part, and then that kind of shifts you over in this direction. And what is that? That's reading.
Yeah.
Right? There's this whole element of reading there. Mike Rader says, like a lot of great art, you feel that you may learn the secret to life if you can decipher the work. Yeah, in this especially. I mean, there's always this pressure to decipher the work, right? And in this, I think one of the reasons we picked this as such a real great piece for us to sort of start talking about art is you come to it, it says, read me, and
It
you
does.
can't. And so what happens then is you sort of are allowed to swim around and float around inside of these graphical depictions, these glyphs, these
Yeah.
sort of forms, and all of us, you know, and it becomes like this experience that's about the language, but not connected to the interpretation. And it says, this is okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of giving us permission to say, I can just really sort of feel this and look at elements of the grid, elements of, you know,
Characters.
the
and
character.
figures
Yes,
and
yes.
The drawings.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see what else. In the three of the drawings, there is a shape that resembles a drill. Yeah, exactly. It looks like it's got a little buffer head on it. Yeah, there's like these weird, there's elements of machinery, there's elements of these weird optics, there's elements of simple geometry, there's elements of language, and they all come together to kind of say, you know, what is happening in here. I want to make sure I get everybody's comments in. Dave says these look like plans for our next treehouse project. Well, that is on the mind. That is on the mind right now. And so if maybe that's like a floor plan right there for that. So blah, blah, blah. Yes. Yes, we got all those. Okay, good. Good. We got everybody.
You know, so one of the things I'm always doing whenever we find a new artist, I'm like, gee, can we buy one of these? So
This comes up every time.
every time. So I did look her up. I could find her on Artsy. And it looks like the drawings usually fetch about $1,500, and then her larger works can go as high as $30,000.
Can I be clear about something? First of all, if you watch, if you ever sort of get into the whole world of collecting art, and there's these like crazy billionaire art collectors out there that have like, you know, I don't know, 9 Jeff Koons pieces and all that. And then you look at the other end of the spectrum of collecting art where there's like the Vogels. If you can look up what were their names?
Herb and Dorothy.
Herb and Dorothy Vogel. That's us. Okay, Herb and Dorothy Vogel they were amazing art collectors.
Well, they were in New York.
Yep.
And he was a
Postal worker.
and she was a teacher.
No, she was a librarian.
Oh, she was a librarian.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And they lived in a little Manhattan apartment,
Yep.
a studio. And they lived off of one salary, and with the other salary,
They collected art. And so what they would do is they would cash that paycheck, and they would actually
They would hoard art.
They would hoard, and I'm talking about they hoarded so much art. Their apartment was so packed to the gills. And what they would do is they would go to artist studios. They would walk right into the studio, which is a no-no nowadays. You can do that, but you usually can't buy the work from the artist, especially if they're represented by a gallery. The gallery has a contract where they can't sell to you directly, but the Vogels did this. And one sign that a show that you had was successful is if the Vogels came to your show.
Yeah.
And so at the end of their lives, they donated.
Well, I think it was a project, and I'm gonna probably misspeak on this, but I think it was every 50 states they gave 2 pieces of artwork.
No, I think they gave 50 pieces.
it 50 times
pieces
50?
to every 50 state.
It was something like they had amassed such a collection, but they donated it at the end of their lives.
But the thing was, they were so good at picking work, and they picked
Yeah.
it because they loved it,
Yeah.
that by the time they came to the end of their lives, their collection was just insane. It was amazing work in their collection. And even after they got done donating the 2,500 pieces that they donated, that wasn't the whole collection.
No, I
there was
don't
a
think
lot
it was.
more
I think there
there.
was a lot more left.
Fascinating. We should do the Vogels on one of these shows
We
one night.
should.
We should
because
do a whole thing
I
on
know
them.
that there's a documentary out on them.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're pretty cool.
And this says, Ron says, I think that the recognizable objects tend to draw the individual viewers in. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a funny balance, right? It's this balance of stuff you're not going to understand, that glyph thing, and then this thing that's going to pull you in. So it creates this
Yeah,
cool,
it's like it's teleporting us.
cool relationship.
Yeah.
Mary Russell says yes. Is that a yes to the Vogels, or is that a yes to Angus Ron's comment? let us know. So I know that most of you are probably going to bail in the next 9 minutes or so
Yeah.
because we've got
We're up against two other people.
we're up against
tonight.
two other people that everybody's well, or maybe who's not Vogel's spelling. No, that's correct. That's the correct
That
spelling.
is correct. Yep.
Yeah, they're amazing. So yeah, we'll try to fit them into a show at some point.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
Oh.
How many people are watching this thing tonight? Who's watching? Let us know. Who's not? All right, better yet, who's not watching? Watching or not watching? Let's take a poll. I mean, I think I'm going to do it like I did it all the other times. I'm going to turn it on reluctantly. Pit Pop says 11. Thanks, Ron. I appreciate
thank
that.
you.
That's great. Pit Pop says, I'm here. We want to watch, but we don't
want to
want.
watch. Yep,
Yeah.
I understand that.
Same.
Okay.
Mom says not watching. Watching though, see how long we can last. Yes, Christina, that's exactly how we are. It's like I turn these things on and I'm just like.
Well, it's important. It's an important part of pop culture to watch these things too.
Dave Schmidt's watching. Memory Vessels half watch then sleep. Yeah, I have a feeling I might get quarter watch. Kenny Belasco, holy crap! Kenny Belasco is watching right now, and I feel like I haven't. All right, it's true. I shouldn't say I feel like I haven't seen you in many, 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 many years. I haven't seen you in many, many, many years. And I have to say, in my art collection, which we keep talking about, I still have that painting I traded with you for when we were an undergraduate. That really beautiful geometric abstract piece with that very, very thick canvas wrap frame. I love that thing. Still here. So there. Yeah, many, many years. Ben says he doesn't think he's watching. Dave says, and happy early birthday.
Yep,
Yeah, had to bring that up.
It's Todd's last day of being 50.
I gotta go. Thank you. Thank you. So nice to see you, Ken. That's cool. And I think, thank you, Amanda. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to turn 51 tomorrow. So I'm officially past the half century mark, which is, I got this far. This was a good time tonight. I'm so glad so many of you came. This was like really, really nice of all of you. Yes, tomorrow is my birthday, Memory Vessel. Tomorrow's my birthday. Old fart. Awesome. Thanks, Ron. You too. Welcome to the club. Yep. Thanks, Ben. Thank you very much. All right, everybody. Well, we're going to give you a chance to go and tune into that debate and get settled with your medication, your popcorn, whatever it is you're going to take before this thing. And it says, watch it, Terry. He might look for another art critic after that comment.
Maybe.
All right. Well, you guys were awesome tonight. We didn't have any microphone glitches, which I'm really happy about.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if anybody has any, they want to see somebody featured on the show or anything like that.
If you have ideas for who to feature on the show, definitely drop us, a comment on the Instagram, or you can drop us a comment on the YouTube.
We probably won't say it right away because the surprise is part of it. So we really have a good time.
Yeah, I posted tonight that we were doing Karla Knight, and Terry's like, "You're not supposed to tell them." I'm like, "Well, how else are we going to actually get people interested in doing this?"
I guess that's true. We're still trying to figure it out.
We're trying. We're trying. So, Christina, this was awesome. Thank you so much. Ron, thank you so much. Mom, thank you so much. Memory Vessel, good to see you. Say hi to the other guy. I'm still reluctant to hand out names when it says, can I post you on the Instagram? Yes, please, please, please. We would love that. We would love that.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, have fun watching the debate.
Have fun watching the debate.
Yeah.
And we will see you next week, Tuesday, 8 o'clock. Come see us. And
yeah.
And cheers. All right. Good night, everybody.
Have a good night.